Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get this show on the road. Call to order the May 7th Board of Supervisors meeting. We always start off with the invocation. If y'all will pray with me, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for many blessings and opportunities you give us each and every day. We ask a special blessing on this group, specifically for the need that we provide guidance. You provide us guidance to make the necessary decisions in the best interest of the citizens of this county. We also share that prayer with all other governmental agencies as they meet today and this evening as well to make their decisions for their communities. We ask that you be with us and guide us and direct us. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right. Public comments. Miss Becky, you're on.
Notice that I'm hopping up here with Miss Becky.
Becky.
Yeah, this is introductory information right quick. I want to give you guys just a basic 30,000-foot view of what this discussion will be about, give you a little bit of a background and a history on it. First and foremost, this is related to our elections. Ms. Becky gave me a shout a couple of weeks back and said, we've been thinking about and talking about the possibility that our elections, our processes, could be moved from under the Board of Supervisors over to the Circuit Clerk's office for the purpose of helping with a lot of logistical issues and to address what has popped up as an issue for us with respect to our information technology department. As you guys know, we're very short-staffed in IT, and we're down to 2 folks. And our IT department is asked to shoulder a significant amount of the work that goes into our elections preparation, specifically ballot prep, specifically LNA testing, logic and accuracy testing, specifically getting all of the machines ready, and then overseeing the functioning of those machines both before and during and to some extent after the elections are over. Ms. Becky has been in conversations with a number of different folks, both folks in our IT area and the folks with HART, who are the manufacturers of the machines that we now have. She's been in discussions with those guys about how it is that her department could oversee all of that, take it out from under the board, get it over there, and do that. And so Ms. Becky is here to give you guys a little bit of information about what she's found and how it is that she thinks that she would be able to help us. So I'm going to let her speak to whatever issue that she thinks. And we've got the election coming up. Let me give you some timelines here. We've got the primary election, as you know, that's coming up very quickly. So the LNA testing has got to be underway in fast order. HART, the manufacturers of our equipment, is prepared to provide technical assistance and guidance and some of the work with respect to the day of election, troubleshooting, that type of thing. They're available to do all of that. Of course, there's a cost associated with that. So Ms. Becky's here to give you guys any information you think you need, but her offer is that she will take that responsibility, even for this first series of elections. She'll take that responsibility on, and the board's responsibility then will just be simply to enter into an agreement with the circuit clerk. By the way, this is done all over the state. Where the board has an agreement with the circuit clerk to provide this election responsibility for a cost that she can cover, all of those expenses that are associated with that. It's her doing it versus the board undertaking that responsibility. So sort of see a framework here. This is for discussion. Okay, you're not being asked specifically today to take action unless you want to take action. Okay. So there you have it. There's a 30,000-foot view of what's being offered. Ms. Becky take responsibility for it, for a cost. She'll do all of the work associated with it. She'll work with IT and have IT available to help. It'll be her responsibility. Questions?
I guess, what is the difference in what we're doing now? What role would you play that we're currently playing?
Okay. Currently, y'all have the IT department to do everything. And that was one reason that got me to thinking about this, is because we have 6 elections between now and the end of the year. And our IT department has 2 full-time workers and a part-time worker, where in the past, they had 5 or 6 workers. And usually, I think at least 3 of them were very, very involved in getting all the programming done, doing the LNA testing, getting the machines ready, things like that. Now, the IT department does not have the staff to do that. So I started kind of panicking, thinking, what's going to happen. So I contacted Hart, because that's who we just got the machines from, and got the prices from them if the board ended up having to pay Hart to do this rather than the IT department. And they can do it, but their prices are extremely high to send someone in to do this. I got Michelle to run, because I've never done this before. I've been talking with her to find out what all is involved. I knew that there was a lot involved, but I didn't know for sure how much. Anyway, she gave me a breakdown, and I'll be glad to let y'all look at it. But from start to finish, by the time everything is done, it's like 196 hours worth of work to get everything done. In the past, like Craig said, a lot of the circuit clerks do contract with the board to do the elections. I had never wanted to do that, because in the past we had the older machines. We had like over 300 machines to deal with. And I just thought, that's more than I want to take on. Now we have the new machines, so we have like 100 machines versus over 300 machines to deal with. We have the electronic poll books, which that would be like 50, one per precinct. But I've talked with the people at Hart. They assure me that they can, with Michelle's help and Hart's help, that they can teach me how to do what has to be done. So I just felt like that if a change was going to be made, that now was the time to see about making that change.
A little more meat on the bone, Jay, to help you. The idea would be that instead of involving your total IT department, if Miss Becky took the responsibility, she has the staff in her department to serve that function that is currently being overseen by IT. Michelle would be the one who would come over, and she's here, by the way. Michelle would be the one that would come over to the circuit clerk side to provide, again, the part-time responsibility on the elections, and her oversight would remain. She would be doing that with Miss Becky. But they would have the staffing and could leave the IT department folks alone.
Both
and
of
her
them.
staff. Yeah,
Yeah.
both of them, exactly. So they would be doing their IT things, right, instead of election
Hiring
things.
Hart to come in and run the election.
No,
You would
you
hire
would
Miss
not hire
Becky
Hart, you would
to
hire
run the
me.
election.
So you're gonna have your department do all the testing of the machines.
Right.
Programming the poll books. and
Right.
Everything, so we bought a bunch of them poll books
Yes,
too.
yes.
She said 50. I'd like
Well,
to hear
the
Michelle.
we have over 100 electronic poll books, because sometimes we need 2 at each precinct. Normally, we just have to have 1, but we do have a little over 100 of those, but we wouldn't. In the primary, we're going to use 2 because we have Republican and Democrat, but in the general election, we'll probably just use 1 per precinct.
The one thing, if Michelle didn't mind speaking, would you mind? I'd just like to kind of hear it from the IT's perspective, kind of where you're at and what your suggestion or recommendation might be.
My recommendation.
Yeah. Or what your thoughts are as far as right now, currently, can the IT department do it, you think? Or tell me what you think.
Well, I'm prepared to get it done, one way or the other. If it's through the IT department,
Yeah.
or if it's through contracting with Becky to the needs that she would need to get it done. But with 2.5 people in the department,
Right.
I'm prepared to work on my days off, nights and weekends to get it done, because that's what it's gonna take, because we do not have enough staff in IT.
Okay.
Will that be the case if you work with Becky?
If I work with Becky, that would be on my own time. I would have to, I'm gonna be training her and her staff to take on what we have been doing.
But it would
Would
not-
it ease
she
up
work-
your
but it would
load, though,
not-
as far as you doing night and day? You talking about you having to work
Right,
night and day
I
to
would
work
just-
with? Would that ease up, take a little load off of you?
It would take the elections off of my workload for my normal 3 days a week, and I could focus on the things that I have put aside.
Okay.
But again, I'm willing to do whatever y'all want me to do. I have a plan for if IT's doing it or if Becky's doing it, but we're gonna need all, 3 people to LNA. We have 17 working days. That's Monday through Friday, so that means I'm prepared to work on my off days, Tuesday, Wednesday, to get this done. I mean, I have a full day today. I gotta get media burned, I gotta get with the printer to get the test decks, there's just so much involved.
Well, the
So
election
if-
commissioners, how do they feel on all this?
They don't care, they just want it done.
The election commissioners, their job is the machine, is at the polls. They don't handle the machines.
Well, I know, but I
So,
mean,
yeah.
to me, when you do an election, you're all
It's
kind
everybody.
of
Oh,
one
it is.
big
I agree
group
100%.
when it
Yeah.
comes down to that day.
Yeah, no, and I think all of them were fine with it. I haven't had any of them say that they were not in favor of it.
Quick question, if Becky, you take it over, Michelle, you'll still be working with her in the election side. Will that be you be the only person from IT at that point going
That's
forward doing that? So ever how many folks we end up having in IT department, they'll be free, will not be tied up during this election process based upon what you're proposing? Okay.
Isn't that right?
That's correct.
That's right.
I mean, I'm for it.
don't
I mean,
see
I
that.
think we're at a point to we're at critical mass, and
That's
something's
right.
got to happen before the June election. So, I'm in
Personally, I'd
favor.
like to see how much it's gonna cost
Bryce.
before we agree
Okay.
to
Well,
that.
and I don't,
I've-
yeah.
I've
No,
heard,
I-
I've
I-
heard
no, I
figure,
don't mind telling you.
but I don't know how that.
I contacted several other circuit clerks, because I said many circuit clerks do this.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know
Yep,
that.
in the statute, it's provided that the circuit clerks can contract with the Board of Supervisors to run the elections, and it's money above the cap that we're allowed. So many circuit clerks do it.
Okay.
I just had never done it before because it scared me to death. But anyway, most of them charge per machine, like $100 per machine. So that would basically be $10,000, because if we have 2 machines at each we have 50 precincts, and $100 per machine, that would be $200 per precinct. And then probably $50 for the electronic poll books, regardless of how many we use, because sometimes we use 2, sometimes we use 1. But anyway, the way I had it figured out, it was like $12,500 per election.
That's from now till the end of
No,
the year?
per election.
Per
Per
election.
election, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And we got how many elections?
Well, we could possibly have 6, because we've got the June 5th election. Where's my paper?
June 5th, June 26th, July,
Depends on how many runoffs we end up with.
yeah,
We've got June the 5th.
So you're talking about a runoff will be another election?
it's
Right.
another election.
Because you have to redo
Wow.
everything.
You
And,
have to have all 50 precincts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rolling.
and before, we had more machines, but it didn't take as long for the LNA testing. With the new machines that we have, it takes longer, much longer for the LNA testing, because you have to hand put in every ballot. And like for this election, we've got Republican and Democrat. By the time you do all the scenarios of how people could vote, it's like 20 pieces of paper that have to be hand-fed into each machine. So that's why it takes so long for LNA testing. It takes about 35 minutes per machine for LNA testing. So that's really where the bulk of the expense comes from. And if Hart did just the LNA testing, it would be like $5,900 per. Let me see. It'd be like $12,000. I figured out it'd be like $12,000 just for them to do the LNA. Yeah, because they charge for the Republican side and for the Democratic side. And then they still said that they would have to have county helpers. That would be them sending one person to do it. And they still would have to have county helpers, which in the past, the IT department has done that.
Right.
So,
Well, my take on it is, I think we have to do it at least for these first few elections until we get the IT staff back up and running. I mean, I don't know that
We have no
it's
choice.
necessarily a plan for the entire year on the
That's
whole deal,
fine.
but at least to get us through the June, July election side of it.
yeah, because we've got June.
Because we're so understaffed.
Yeah, we've got June the 5th, and I feel sure that there will be a runoff because there's so many people running in that election, so the runoff for that is June 26th. Now, the July 10th election, that's a special election for House District 77. There's only 3 precincts involved in that, 3, like Cato, Johns, and stuff. But anyway, so that one would not be nearly as expensive.
Right.
Because
Few
it's
$100.
yeah, it would just be a couple, $600 or $700.
Then after July, when's the next? Was that not till
November
November?
the 5th.
November, okay.
November, and then chances are there'll be a runoff for that one, because even though it's a general election, several of the elections within that general election are classified as special elections. And on a special election, somebody has to have 50%.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, my take would be to do it on the first 3 or so elections and see where we get to on the IT side. I know we
That's
want to fill
fine.
that staff back up and get some people hired. I know Ms. Laura's working on that process. So my take would be, let's run it through these first 3 elections on the side and come back and revisit the idea whether we stay with it or move on another route.
and that's fine with me.
that
I'm just
would be
trying to
mine.
get us through this year.
First 3 would be something under 30,000, if you just rough numbers. Like
Probably
12 and a
so,
half,
yeah.
12 and a half and
Yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
or something.
Something like that, yeah. I would run the numbers for you for sure,
Yeah.
but I think that's about what it would be.
Is there anything wrong, or would it be something that we shouldn't do to have half the election with someone overseeing it and the other half with our IT people? I mean, would we be?
What do you
putting
mean by
ourselves-
half? Do you
I
mean?
mean, well, the
Yeah.
first, the 2 Junes
Oh, okay.
and the special election down
Yeah.
the,
No, sir. You
and then come back.
structured the
Yeah.
agreement to
That's
reflect
fine.
that it's for these specific elections.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I wouldn't want to stop Ms. Becky's work from the date of the primary say, and then say, we will handle the
No.
runoff.
Right.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's what I
do
thought you
that.
meant when you said half, that's what I
No,
thought.
no,
you
no,
She's
meant.
gonna
no,
be
Yeah.
no.
addressing
I just
all
meant the same
four
calendar year.
parts.
Well,
Yeah, but there wouldn't be a problem with saying, okay, everything went real well and we're satisfied through this special election for House District 77. And we've restaffed IT, so we want to take another look at going back to the old way we're doing it. There would be no problem with that. You just address
Yeah.
that in the contract, Ms. Beck.
Daniel, you don't think the election commissioners need to put forth their 2 cents?
Well, my thoughts were they just handled the election the day of. I didn't know they do all the
They don't-
prep
they
work
don't
on the
do the
machines.
prep
I didn't know they did that.
I think they have, hadn't they? They're doing the poll books.
No, I do the poll books.
I mean, I guess that was my question. If the election commissioners are involved in
No,
the
the
setup,
electronic poll book.
The electronic poll books. Tanya shows me what to do, and Tanya did it. So we've only used the electronic poll books one other time.
Right.
And she did do it then, but she is already planning on coming to my office the last Saturday of the election to show me what has to be done. Because they have made it very, very plain, they do not want to touch the electronic poll books. So she had already told me that that was gonna be my responsibility regardless.
Well, I appreciate you coming forward, being willing to
Yeah.
do it, but I would like to at least get a to Z
That's fine.
breakdown as to where we start, who's responsible for delivering equipment, picking it up.
Okay, now and that is the election commissioner's job. They're the ones that are responsible for getting the equipment there. They still have the transporters to do that. They still do that. All I'm saying I would do is have the machines programmed, LNA tested,
which
ready
would be
to
the same thing the
picked up.
board had done in the past, right? Michelle's
yeah,
group
right.
had done
The
in the
same thing
past.
the board did. The board wasn't involved in getting the machines to the
Right.
precincts before.
My only spin on waiting on this to the next meeting on the 15th, then you're going to put them with a 10 to 12 day window for the next
Yeah.
election.
Well,
No,
we can't wait
no,
15
I agree.
Right.
because, like I said, LNA testing is
I mean,
going
we're
to
less than
take.
30 days out right
Yeah.
now.
I mean,
We're less than
I need to
30
start
days.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, my plan is to start tomorrow, whether it be through the board or her, and you know, it just,
Yeah.
Well, let me
And
ask you this, when we have, on election day, we usually have some problems somewhere.
Right.
And IT usually is just running, so with us being short IT, how's that gonna work? I know election commissioners are bouncing around trying to keep it all together, and then IT usually just come in, how, is there gonna be enough staffing to
well,
attend to that?
well, I'm off on Tuesdays. That's one of my days off. So Tuesday is an election day. So I was prepared to train up her staff to help take support calls from 6 a.m. is usually when I arrive on an election day. And the last election, which was a small election, we didn't leave till 10 that night.
And that was only 17 precincts.
And that was a little, you know, Tyler and I handled the last couple of elections by ourselves, but we had a 16 precinct election. We did I forget what election that was. We've had several. It was a constable race down in your district.
That's right.
16 precincts. We handled that and the runoff by ourselves, but we had, and then the 17, House 77, was a 17 precinct election, and actually we involved Brett in that election, but we still had someone over to answer,
Michael
at least
was
answer
here
the
then,
phone.
yeah.
but it was such a small precinct, you know, we could handle that ourselves.
Okay.
But now we're talking about L&A and 100 plus. Eric wants 4 extra precincts available, and then we have to have extras on standby in case something happens. But IT has done the support, election day support for years, and the new equipment, I can't say enough about it. It's helped tremendously with our support calls. We don't get near as many,
I would
but you
hope so.
still have to be there.
Yeah.
You still have to be there to answer the phone call at 6:15, 6:30 when they're trying to get them open. And you have to be there at 7 o'clock at night when they're trying to close.
Let me ask this, Miss Laura, how does it work with Michelle on her, because she's considered part-time, how does that work if she's got to work? Let's just say we didn't go with Miss Becky, how would that work with Michelle
She's paid for her time,
straight through regardless? So I mean,
regardless.
it wouldn't be shorting her, or I mean, obviously messing with your schedule, you know, obviously, but money-wise, she would still be compensated from those days. You can exceed her weekly limits?
Yes, you can. I mean, she's already in hers and what she has, she can be paid.
So that'd be an
She
additional-
still doesn't get overtime unless she goes over that. But it's my understanding if it's handled this way, on those days, she would be contracted with Becky, and Becky would pay her for those days. It would not come out of
On the
IT
additional
budget.
days.
Okay.
On the additional
On the
days.
additional
Right.
days
On
rather
the
than us?
additional days, the hours that she worked for
Okay.
elections.
Alright. I mean, Mr. President, I'm at a point to move to make the motion to, I guess we gotta, put it on the agenda to approve,
We
so,
could, if you want to, you can add it.
I mean, I think we gotta
I
act
don't, I
on
don't see
that.
we're gonna have much choice with the
The
timeline.
first three,
And I think try and see, and you may come back and say, hey.
That's what I was gonna
want
say,
this.
I don't mind doing it this way, because after I go through
Yeah.
these first 2, I may come, I worked with her 2 days last week, and I mean, my head was just swimming, I'm like, oh goodness. So I don't mind doing it that way.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that way, if I
we-
decide
we'll
it's
Got
too
you
much.
a place marker under additional business to handle this.
Okay.
If you'd like, we'll add it at that point. That way you guys can continue to think about it.
Right.
And you can continue to come up with a motion that you're gonna work for the minutes too while we're at it.
Yes,
During that, to that time frame.
perfect.
And maybe you can get us a breakdown of prices.
Do we need to do that before the end of the meeting? Or?
Can you try that?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do that.
yeah.
I got a feeling we're gonna be a little while anyway, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'll be fine, yeah, I'll go work on that and bring it back.
All
Okay.
right, thank you for.
Thank you,
Thank
Dan. Thank y'all.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's move on with public comments. Just a reminder to our guests out there who are going to be making public comments, we try to keep this to 3 minutes per person. And if the person ahead of you is saying essentially the same thing, feel free to come introduce yourself for the record, but also just say that you agree with the prior person. First up is Drew Howard with Pine Brook HOA. Mr. Drew and Ms. Voss. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, gentlemen, thank you. I'm Lori Voss. I'm going to trump Drew here just for a second. And I have some handouts. Can I give them
Sure.
to
Your
you?
address, Ms. Voss, too, while you're handing out.
266 East Pine Brook Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Drew, your address?
Yeah, 208 Pine Leaf Cove.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 3 minutes. I will talk fast. The area that we're having problems with is included in the PID, so it kind of gives you an idea of where it is that we live. I'm going to be talking about Turtle Creek specifically, and as I understand it, Turtle Creek is a naturally occurring waterway that probably started, if you look at that map, in that undeveloped area, kind of meanders downhill through Huntington Lakes, probably at one time ran into Pelahatchie Creek and then into the Pearl River. So now this area, the PID came into being, it all starts getting developed, and Pine Brook, which is where we live, is in the, probably one of the first developments there in the PID area, although it's not part of the Pinelands like some of the other neighborhoods are. And as more and more cement was added to the PID area, a problem started to grow for Pine Brook. As you can see from the first map that's kind of got a lot of red arrows and a blue squiggly line going through it, all the water in this PID area eventually ends up in Pine Brook, in Turtle Creek. Turtle Creek splits Pine Brook east to west. It's not a real big neighborhood. We have about 180 rooftops, but as you can see from the arrows, we have water drainage from Farmington into Huntington, under Hugh Ward into Turtle Creek. We have it coming down Deer Park to Turtle Ridge, into Huntington, back into Turtle Creek. We have it coming from Avalon into Farmington, into Huntington. As you can see, all waterways lead into Pine Brook and Turtle Creek. Let me back up. In response to this flooding, and I've lived in Pine Brook almost 10 years, so I have a pretty good view of the whole thing. Several years ago, Wood Brown attempted to help us. He had the levee raised a little bit at Huntington Lakes before it comes back under Hugh Ward and into Turtle Creek and into Pine Brook. It helped some, but again, not everything was developed as it is to this day. More rooftops, more streets, all that means more runoff into Turtle Creek, and it just keeps escalating. During normal or light rainfalls, we don't have a problem. The creek is able to take all the runoff and go on its way to the reservoir. If we get heavy rain or prolonged rain, we have a problem. Mr. Cross knows well. He's been in the neighborhood himself. He sends Rankin County folks to help us out regularly. Don't you, Mr. Cross?
A lot, yeah.
There's some pictures there. I apologize, one of them's kind of dark, but as you can see, and this is heavy rainfall or prolonged rainfall events. But it's not a hurricane. It's not a weather disaster. This is just, rainfall that most other neighborhoods can handle, we can't handle. The roads are impassable. The cars have flooded. Rankin County crews repeatedly come out. They set up barricades to warn motorists from driving through the affected areas. Water comes up several feet into many yards, as you can see, comes up under the mailboxes. The news crews from Jackson have come on site and documented our flooding. Pine Brook sits at the bottom of the hill, Hugh Ward, and at the end of everybody else's drainage. At this point, property owners are starting to get concerned about their property values. We're making the news, the word's kind of getting out that Pine Brook has a flooding problem, and people are concerned with their property values. We're here, I guess, today to solicit the help somehow of the Board of Supervisors to see what we can do. I do have some ideas for solutions. I don't know. One thing is to make sure that Turtle Creek, as it meanders through Pine Brook and then on its way to the reservoir, make sure that it's clear. There are some fallen trees. There's, I'm sure, debris in there. There might be deep beaver dams. I mean, it's not like I've walked through it and seen, but it could be a fairly simple solution. If we make sure Turtle Creek is running free, that might be all there is to it. We don't know. We haven't gotten into it. Make sure that the culverts in Pine Brook are clear. Haven't walked through those to see what they're like. Could be possible that we may need to widen or deepen Turtle Creek in places so it can handle more water. Both the levees at Huntington Lake, there's two of them. Both of those possibly could be raised, because all this does first land in Huntington Lakes before it comes to us. So if both of those levees were raised some, without putting that neighborhood in danger, that would probably help so much coming to us. And I want to stress this because you guys are in a position to really make a difference in this respect. When that undeveloped area that's at the corner of Farmington and Hugh Ward, When that corner right there starts to get developed, it is imperative that the drainage from that is contained or eliminated into Huntington. The more cement, the more roofs that go into that neighborhood, it will devastate Pine Brook. It will absolutely put it underwater. It just can't have any more runoff coming into it. I mean, it's possible to even try to bring the PRV into it to make sure that it's dredged properly in the reservoir to accommodate the water. So that's my spiel. If you have any questions, and Drew, if he has more to add, I'll.
Mr. President, I want to say one thing real quick to you. First off, thank you both of y'all for coming. We're very aware of what's going on over there. I've been out there numerous times since it all happened, and waist deep in water, and I've gone from that portion of Turtle Creek from Hugh Ward all the way to the reservoir, walking it and checking in that same point. But let me add you a few things that the process is going on. For the last 6 months, I know at least, our engineers, along with our road manager, have been trying to come up with a plan or a way to fix it. We've discussed issues on raising the levees and all in Huntington Lake. We've discussed issues of the creek itself, where it comes back into the subdivisions. We're trying to get a game plan together. I know it's not a good answer to tell you, but they're looking at it right now, our engineers and our road manager, on trying to figure out a plan of how to get the water off of you guys as quickly as we can. It is a life safety issue. That's why once we get those torrential rains, the sheriff's been extremely cooperative to put his MRAT and Deuce and House and all out in that area to where we know we have access to those people. We're going to be sure we keep a life safety presence in mind for you guys until we can get it fixed. It is a ton of water. The roads become impassable. We know it. We're trying to get a solution. It's kind of one of those bad answers. I hate to even say it that way from a government standpoint, is we're trying to fix it, but we are looking at the avenues to get in there and get the water off of you guys. So we just don't have the right option right now. We're going to continue to figure it out. We met as recently as last Friday again on the lake itself, looking at different options and areas, because it does affect the water all the way downstream. We've looked at issues that you mentioned right there at Spillway Road, where it comes into Turtle Creek subdivision right there, as far as maybe enlarging the box on how much water the reservoir can take. The height of the reservoir actually dictates a lot of that.
Right.
So they're going to do a water study on the same side of it and figure out what's going on. So we're aware of it. I wish I could tell you we had a solution. We don't right now, but we're trying to figure it out. So
I know there's also been an issue that's come up, like the ownership of Turtle Creek as it does all that.
Because it is private property on the back side of everything,
Yeah.
which that does make it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
But where it all ties into us is that water backflow shuts down the roadways, and the roadways are something we can actually operate on. So we're looking at all different angles of it to figure out the best solution. We don't want Hugh Ward Boulevard washed out. We don't want any homes washed out. We don't want the roadways washed out. So it is a working process. It's not a dead issue by no means. These guys are looking at it, and we're going to be in contact with you, let you know what the game plan is. But thanks for your comments. I appreciate what you're saying.
Appreciate your time.
And we're aware of it, I promise. So
Well, we knew you were, but we just kind of wanted to.
these guys right here are good. They love the reservoir.
We
so.
all.
They love the reservoir. They all want to move out there, but I don't know what's holding them back. But we are aware of it, though, seriously.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming in and sharing it with us.
In fact, all over the county, we got.
Drew, you have any comments you want to add to it real quick?
I don't. I just echo what Lori said.
Great, thank you. Thank y'all.
you guys.
Thank you guys.
Very much. Yep.
All right, we'll move on. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart, if you kind of state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yes, Charles Stewart, Homeland Neighborhood Management, 535 Brighton Circle, Brandon, 39047. I spend much less time than that, just echoing what she said, and there's several here, people who have been with boots in those areas. You're quite aware of it. We manage 30 subdivisions, 8 are roughly in that area, in different parts of Rankin County. About half of those 8 are right there, and they're adjacent, Avalon, Farmington, as well as Pine Brook. And of course, Farmington has the water that flows. There'll be a meeting tonight. We appreciate your attendance there. And thank you for giving it attention. We know that there's nothing to vote on now. You have it in the works, but I'll be glad to do any sort of coordinating for all of those water matters you can. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Ms. McGee. Name and address, please, ma'am.
Hello, good morning. I'm Michelle McGee at 401 Fenway. I'm actually just going to piggyback off of what Charles has mentioned. We're having a flooding issue, not necessarily in Farmington Station, but Avalon has said that they've experienced some flooding from our neighborhood since it's been there. We've had, the issue was brought to our attention in 2014, and from what we understand, that issue started in roughly 2011. This, forgive me for not making copies of this package, but this is what we received back in 2014, showing some of the flooding that one of the neighbors backed up to Avalon has experienced from our detention pond. So all I would ask is that you guys would add to the game plan that you have with Pine Brook, if you could include Farmington Station's detention pond as part of that plan to see if that is any part of the problem that Avalon has been experiencing, so that we can determine what our part is in that, and if at any point in time, if the neighbors, our neighbors, my heart goes out to them every time we have a heavy rain, and I just want, because we've been in correspondence with them as well, and we just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as part of Farmington Station, because it is our property. But if you guys could come in and play a role, because it is a very expensive project from what I understand, we would love for you guys to add that to the game plan as possible.
Mr. President, if I can say one thing on that, just to address that for a second. We have been out there numerous times, and we were out there with Homeland. Mr. Slade was out there along with Mr. Parker and both Mr. Parkers, I guess we could say, and our road manager. So we're aware of that, the retention pond right there, or detention pond, so it kind of backs up to that man's property. We were in there multiple times, and we're trying to work as best we can. Again, it's a private property issue on the same side of it, but we're going to do anything we can legally to make that work as best we can. So, and that's why we put all the bright lines we got over there on top of it. So we've been out there with it. We're aware of that spot as well, and we'll do anything we can legally to make it work.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important. I don't want Ms. McGee to leave the podium with a misunderstanding about where retention ponds specifically fall into all of this. Those are exclusively private property. The county does not take responsibility for them. They are maintained privately by either homeowners associations or, failing a homeowners association, by the residents themselves of the subdivision. The county is not, and as far as I know, has no intention to be involved in the retention pond business. And so I don't want there to be any sort of misimpression that the county is going to actively participate in correcting a retention pond issue. We can certainly help to address what may or may not be wrong with it and provide some sort of guidance as to how it could be improved, remediated, or whatever is required. We can certainly participate in that process, but the actual work to revise or reform a retention area will have to be done by private property owners.
Which is why we want to put our crews out there. I mean, they
Okay.
can give you the advice on what we can or can't do, and they don't have a problem coming to look at stuff to see if the county is involved or what the county's role is.
And that's all I ask. I understand that it is a private property. That's why I mentioned it at the end of my statement. I totally understand that, and that's not the expectation that I'm bringing to you guys. I just, because our neighborhood is not being flooded by that detention pond. It's doing its part, but I guess because it was brought to our attention from our neighbor, and they hadn't experienced that until our neighborhood was built. So my question is, was it properly constructed? So that's the one thing that I think should be looked at, and even though it was approved, was it properly constructed? Because if they weren't having the flooding before that, then what has caused it since then? So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. Anybody else? I see we have Mr. Franco on the list, but he's not here at the moment, so we'll interject him in when he gets here. Anybody else for public comments? If not, we'll move on. Item 4, old business, old minutes. Say our motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cross. Who made the second? Mr. Gaines. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. 5, consent agenda.
So moved.
By Mr. Cross.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Oster, would you do the kind word for us, please?
I will. This is petition for change of assessments on 2017 real and personal property.
Motion?
So moved.
Mr. Cross? Mr. Bishop, second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Harrison?
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, how are y'all?
I make a motion to approve work accomplished and schedule.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Morrison, first by Mr. Bishop. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. B,
Request approval for utility permit for Atmos Energy to construct a 2-inch HDPE gas main service utility along and across Glen Cove subdivision to be installed by May 18 and September 18.
So what does HDPE stand for?
High density polyethylene.
I asked him.
Thank you, Chris.
Tell them everybody knows that. Even lawyers know what that means.
Turn that one over to your assistant.
One thing,
Thank you. Feel free anytime, Craig.
would the board have a problem with approving B through F in one motion, since they're all basically approval permits? I hate for
I just have a question. I'm ready to approve them, but a lot of this is a lot of fiber going down, and they've named off subdivisions, not roads, including Old Fannin. Is it out of the realm for us to try to get a when they're going to be in these places working timeline?
Most of
before
these.
I mentioned I wanted someone to be, have some type of signage out there, but
If you look under my section, Jay, item H, under my section, you'll find that we have a utility permit policy that is going to be before you for discussion, and we have substantially beefed up our permit policy to include a signage responsibility.
yeah.
So it's in there now, and what we're going to be asking you guys to do is to make it effective immediately, so that when Mike goes back to these guys today, the ones that you've got on here, they'll actually be signing and receiving a permit under the new policy.
you want to do the new policy first and then approve?
We can do whatever y'all want to do. It didn't really matter to me one way or the other.
Does that make a difference legally? Does that make any difference how you approve it?
It does,
Okay.
because it's all happening today.
But the new policy is gonna cover a lot of our issues we've had out there, being notified, who's out there,
And
when they're.
and ensure it's cleaned up properly back the way it was.
Yeah,
That's what
correct.
Ken
So
said.
there is a motion
That's a
out
big
there
thing.
to consolidate B through F. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries to consolidate B through F for approval.
Thank you.
Number 8, Mr. Parker.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I only have one item on the agenda, and it's on North Shore Landing Phase 1, which is in Mr. Cross's area, and I'm recommending approval of the construction plans on that project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like. I assume there were no questions, sorry. But all upon like sign, motion carries.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Schley, number 9.
Looks like we can consolidate some stuff here, guys. All of items A through E are to set public hearings, and so I would ask that we set A through E, consolidate A through E, and approve
So
for
moved.
setting hearings.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Item F is the authority for the county to enter into the health care service agreement with Mississippi Correctional Services for inmate health care, and authority the board president to execute that agreement. If you have any questions about that, I know the sheriff's here in the event we've got any questions, but this is something we've already discussed, and now it's before you to authorize you to execute the agreement.
Motion approved.
Yep, second.
Can we add one thing to it?
Nope.
Can we make it where Paul has to personally cut the grass at the sheriff's office with a Yazoo push mower?
In all caps. In all caps.
Wear gloves. Those things will beat you.
All right, just got a motion on the table by Mr. Bishop. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cross. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Item G goes along with our proposed Rankin County unit system barn. Ms. Janice has trained me how to say that. we need to authorize engineering service to conduct the required civil package documentation that goes with that construction activity. What the board knows is that we are in the process of working toward having a similar approach to what we have with the new courthouse and with the misdemeanor facility, where we have an architect in charge of the design, but we have a separate item for the civil package, and we're asking you guys to authorize engineering service to move forward with preparing the civil package.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. H.
Yes, sir. This is what I alluded to previously. It's a discussion and authority to approve the utility permit policy. Over in your pack, you'll find the actual policy itself that has been worked on by myself, our consulting engineers, and by Mike. We're satisfied with the language. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. I want to point out to Jay that if you'll look, Jay, it's item 9, Roman numeral 9G. Oh, they don't have that in front of them?
I'll trust you though.
All right, here's what is actually on the permit. Number one, they're required to have a permit in their possession at all times when the work is being conducted. But the first item is the applicant or the contractor who's performing the services must display a minimum 20-inch by 20-inch sign indicating the name of the applicant and the name of the contractor performing services. And they have to do that in a visible location in close proximity to where they're actually doing that. They have to have a copy of the permit with them at all times. The minimum depth of bury on all of the utilities is 5 feet, and we're saying that anything that is being buried in conjunction with like a regrading activity of road, it has to be 5 feet from the final depth of surface where that new construction will be, and that's to get them low enough under us so that when our county crews are out there, we're not impacting those utilities that have been buried. We're trying to get them deep enough. Any utility that crosses a county road has to be encased, and that's again to help us with any cuts. And then the applicant is being required to provide what's called a CAD format as-built drawings that depict and describe the location and the depth of all utilities installed. That's so we can plug that in to our tax assessors' work product, and eventually this is going to show up and be readily available for us to know what's buried where and how deep. Okay, and they also have to provide us with a PDF version of that.
Where do they bury it now?
Sir?
I know it varies, but are they supposed to be burying depth-wise now?
It should be at least 3 foot.
Yeah.
Is
Trying
5
to get them
feet,
deeper than that.
is 5 feet gonna be a problem for them for?
Most of them deeper than that, Jerry. That was just, you get into 3 foot in the bottom of the ditch, that's why we
That's a problem.
changed that.
Yeah.
Most of this is running in the bottom of our ditches.
Right.
So that's the reason we deepen this, because it's not giving us enough room
Right.
to get our pipes and stuff.
When you're saying 3 foot in the bottom of the ditch, you're talking about 3 foot from the level, from the ground.
Five.
Not out from the roadway.
Because the bottom of the ditch may be 2 foot.
That's right.
And you're only 1 foot in the ground.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Who enforces this application? This
The road
permit?
manager. The road manager is primarily responsible for it. There's the truth of the matter is we've got some language in here, Bob, that implicates some other requirements. I think it's important for you guys to know. For instance, Mississippi 811 has come out with regulations that apply to these utilities, and we are incorporating the Mississippi 811 requirements into our application. They have to certify that, help me out here, Mike, or Tim, either one. They've got to certify that they have contacted the utilities that are already in place and confirm that they're not going to implicate any of those utilities as they are installing or burying theirs. These are just good neighbor requirements is what I'm getting at. They have, there is a lot of teeth in this new permit policy that's going to give us a lot more control. In other words, there's a lot more opportunities for us to say your activity is stopping now beyond just depth and whether they're in the back of the ditch or not, that type of thing, there are other implications to this now.
What about remedies? If they're in violation,
Pull the permit, stop orders, that they won't be permitted. And we've also implicated that the next time you come forward for another permit, until that mess up is remediated, you're not getting another permit.
And that's where your as-bilt's gonna come in, because we'll be able to look back and see what that's done is, that's where they've gone back and relocated, made sure and gave us correct measurements, Mr. Bob, of where everything is. So that's the reason we started asking for that.
are you gonna use your assistant road managers to kind of help? I think if you
Police it.
police it the first couple of
Right.
months, let them know you're serious
Right.
about it, that will kind of set the right tone with the
Well, what
process.
we've run into is, the biggest problem like Jay's having and Daniel in some of these subdivisions. I pulled in a subdivision the other day, and nothing against anybody, but didn't nobody speak English. I mean, I had to go through 30 guys, finally get somebody that could halfway talk, but nobody had a permit in their truck. And so.
So you didn't know if they were supposed to be there or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew.
You
I
knew
knew-
something was supposed to be going on there,
Right,
but in theory,
right. Yeah, in theory, I didn't know. But
If that
with
was
the
the right
signage-
crew or
with the-
not.
I think with the signage saying ceasefire, Big Buck, whatever some of these people call themselves, or Kelly, Bowen Service with Center Point, you know, with that signage out there, I think it'll at least let people know in the subdivision, because when they go into these subdivisions right now, they have got 40 or 50 guys running around in the subdivision. So these people don't really know what's going on. We can't stop them. I mean, public service won't let us do that, so. But we can
Anticipate
put all,
push-
we can put all the teeth we want to in it.
you anticipate any significant pushback from anybody?
Possibly, yes, sir, but it'll be specific to a utility. Typically, your AT&Ts of the world, until you get really aggressive and start messing with them hard time, they will come to on most of the smaller stuff, like signage. They're gonna be able to accommodate that without any real significant. And they're also used to, and they're also used to working with other areas where they have tighter controls like this. I think they'll be able to fold it in. Where we may see some pushback is in some of the utilities that consistently like to be unregulated. Some of your
Go ahead, Sam.
cable outfits.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
We just call it cable.
What's
Yeah.
okay, what happens if they come along and hadn't put it that deep? You know,
Well, it's
3
no
months from
different.
now.
I mean, we had Center Point come out the other day, and we had to look at some stuff, and, no, it wasn't Center Point, excuse me, it was Atlas. We had to go out there and look at the stuff. Couldn't meet the depth requirement. Me and Tim went out there, looked at it, talked about the concerns that they had. We made the change on the permit of what we had to do, but at least it brings us to that conversation to do that. And in the past, they just been kind of doing what they wanted to out there.
And if they'll give us the as-built and it shows that there's an accommodation that's at a 3-foot depth instead of a 5, we know about it. At that point, it's us. We cut it at that point, then we need to tend to that, deal with it.
But this should help us on any road projects that we're trying to dig up information, you know. I mean, now it's not gonna get all your old utilities that we hadn't done in the past, but it's just kind of moving toward the future of getting everything up out of the way.
My experience has been too, Bob, this is addressing your question about enforcement, is that from time to time we'll get a little letter from, and I'll just pick on AT&T, I've already started it, but we'll get a letter from those guys that says, hey, y'all cut one of our lines, y'all being the county, y'all cut one of our lines and here's the bill. And so how we typically handle that in the past, and it has been effective so far, is I'll respond by saying, thank you for notifying us about this damage. We don't believe that we caused any damage, but nonetheless, we'll note this and we'll give you a credit against the bill that you owe us for all of the county infrastructure that your crews have damaged over time. So we'll give you this $3,000 credit, And at some point, we'll probably want to talk to you about the $150,000 you owe us for what you've damaged. And generally speaking, there's not a response after that.
I guess not.
All right, motion to approve, Mr. President.
Motion, Mr. Cross, or second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaines. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Ms. Oster, number 10.
Thank you. The first item I have is approval of the pay application number 10 to Chris Albritton Construction, and this is on our new courthouse facility in the amount of $91,184.50 and authority to issue that check.
So
So
moved.
move. Second.
Motion by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. B.
This is the authority for Rankin County Youth Court to enter into a vendor agreement with the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, and it's going to provide training and technical assistance. This project will determine the effectiveness of the juvenile court. Rankin County will receive up to $30,000 over a 2-year period for completing certain tasks, and I do know that travel and training are included in this, and we're one of 13 sites that are nationwide have been selected to participate in this. And we will also need authority for the president to sign the document.
I make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second. Second by Mr. Gaines. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Onward to additional business, Ms. Oster.
We will start voting.
Acknowledgement of the budget amendment as prior approved at the Board of Supervisors meeting on April 16th in the amount of $250,000. At that time, y'all approved it. I had not done a budget amendment. This is just acknowledging that I have put this money into the budget for this year.
Is there a motion?
Yep, so moved.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. That would be a no on B, so that's approved 4-1. Anything else for additional business?
Yes.
We have our right-of-way acquisition. There he is. Hey, Greg. We good? Yep. Is that going executive? Yep. I'm sorry. I thought I had him under additional. He's supposed to be under executive, so.
What about Becky?
We'll let you slide on that one. Just don't make it again. All right, what else?
We have the placeholder for Miss Becky. She
Y'all
hasn't
wanna wait till
returned
she
just yet,
returns?
so I'd like to wait just a minute on that. In the meantime, can I suggest that we talk about our unit system barn and our architect? May we?
Well, I have a question. Is Carl coming today?
I don't think he's going to be here.
Now, y'all sent out an email about an addition to a facility under construction. Shall we go ahead and have that discussion?
Probably need to have that discussion.
Huh?
We do need to have that discussion.
Y'all want to have that discussion first? That's the addition to the misdemeanor? Or not?
Well, we can discuss it.
That's what I mean. I'm not asking for approval. I'm just saying that was an email that's been sent out for discussion.
Yeah, you replied that like something that was going to save us money because the sheriff was moving things and.
No, I just said if you're going to do it, you need to do it now while it's under construction, as opposed to waiting to add it onto it 5 years from now. It's going to cost you twice as much money then to add on to an existing structure than it is to go ahead and take care of the problem now. That was my comment about that.
Well, the only thing that I saw was $750,000, and we have $500 left, and we still have a remodel to do of our old Chancery Court building to take in our other facilities, moving out of the old courthouse. So,
Hey, remind me again what the addition was?
It's 2,500 square feet. It's, Sheriff may have to jump in here to help me with this, but it's additional space for kitchen facilities and for trustees' day area.
Since it's already under a roof, we're closing it all in. It's no, I say it's nothing, it's not something that we have to have, but, as long as we're doing it, not like.
So what Carl reported to you guys was that you've got a challenging site where this additional construction will happen. I don't understand why it's $750,000 challenging, but apparently there's something about that site and the way that it has to be designed that is very challenging.
You got to be more dirt added to it or
well,
something?
from his email, that's what it said. We was going to have to add more dirt, put more pilings down, which is a lot more than what the sheriff is saying, like, that's not closing something in.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. We don't-
Let's do this then. Let's get Carl here for the 15th. We're fishing now because we don't have a good solid idea of where that is on that. So we'll ask Mr. Franco to come on the 15th to give us a better explanation of what he's talking about.
It's pretty clear in the email.
Is this our new medical
Yep.
Oh,
folks
email's
having to
fine.
make us do this?
No, sir, but we're gonna save money on cutting grass, sir.
And it may be, I can't speak for Carl, but there may have been some miscommunication about his being here or not. So let me just put that on the record.
All right, we'll move on then to our new county barn discussion and that process with that architect.
At the board's instruction, we had a follow-up meeting with Mr. Ware, Bonner. I never have.
B-O-H-N-E-R, I believe. But
Yes,
when he
sir.
says we, it was me and Craig.
Yes, sir. So the follow-up discussions resulted in this suggestion, up to 70 hours of architect time for the purpose of design, meetings, the implication being getting everything on paper that we believe is a requirement for this facility, considering all participants who may or may not be a part of the building ultimately, and then arriving at a cost estimate that you guys can figure out. That's 70 hours worth of work. And by the way, we believe, it's reported to us, that there is enough time between now and the 15th to get you guys something by the 15th. So it's 70 hours worth of total architect time, not to exceed $9,500. So that comes out at about $150 an hour.
And this is something we have to have.
Sir?
We have to have an architect.
Well, yes, sir. You've got to have a licensed professional involved because of the cost of the facility.
I mean,
And-
it has to be a licensed professional architect.
Well,
what are you saying?
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in Tim's mouth, but what I heard was, if you go the engineer route, Jared, they are going to hire an architect to do all of the design. So the short answer is, you will have an architect involved. And the thought process from last Thursday was, we are seeing a benefit to having the engineer and the architect arranged so that they are providing unique and different parts of this puzzle separately, and you don't have that cost, that percentage cost issue that comes from the architect being on a percentage cost basis.
I understand.
Separate them out like that.
It is, I mean, this is the best way to do it. I mean, what we asked, I mean.
We discussed
Carl,
it. We discussed putting it
yeah.
out to several, but in the necessity of time and keeping this thing moving in the right direction, we all agreed to go with Mr. Ware. I say the consensus was let Mr. Ware have the opportunity to have a discussion and move forward on that.
So did he feel 70 hours was adequate to take care of
We
everything?
proposed it, yes.
That was like.
Well, not the whole package, but that'll get us somewhere down to get us through the discussion process and get up some pretty concrete ideas of what Mike and the Mike want, and then present it to us for us to make decisions. No, we don't want EOC in there anymore. Yes, we can do it, and this is kind of moving on.
So I think what Jay's asking, what I'm asking is 70 hours, is it was not gonna exceed 70 hours.
Yeah, it's not going to exceed $9,500. It doesn't matter how many hours. When he says
Oh, it's not
his
exceed
estimate
90,
is
okay.
around 70, he believes he can get it done in that time frame. But the not to exceed is 9,500. That's what you need to be aware of.
But that's just to get it to the stage of beginning.
That's to get it to a point where you have a cost estimate, and you also have a rendering or visual. You have some, maybe not the finest detail of a plan, but you actually have spaces that are defined for you inside this structure and who's going to be there.
Well, that's not really what
Jay's
we're
asking though.
That's not the total. That's not the total package. Once we get there, and then we decide what direction we're going to go, then his time will start over again from an architectural deal.
That's where you're going.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
This is just
That's
so
what
we can
hidden.
decide who we want in there and how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I
That's it.
heard, if I recall correctly, what I heard, and Jay, you correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think what I heard was we'd like to see a plan with EOC in there and a plan without EOC in there, if I remember.
Yes.
That didn't come from Jay. Jay said he didn't want EOC to move.
I got you. I got you.
Well, I didn't know EOC was going there till after I heard what went on in the meeting the other day.
Yes, sir.
When did that, we hadn't been discussing that, have we?
Been part of my discussion on the front end. I'm not sure, I've always been on the impression they were gonna make the move with him.
Yeah.
And even to the point the sheriff was gonna go too, but he decided not to, he's gonna stay where he is.
The original thought process that I recall and how, in my discussions with you guys, this goes back a couple of meetings, was that we were looking at a long-range plan. And the reason that we went to Rankin first, a couple of reasons. We didn't want to pay for the property. That's number one. Number two, we needed to know exactly what the ask was supposed to be. And we made an aggressive ask for 90 acres.
Oh, I understand. I just didn't realize the EOC was in this plan right now.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever said EOC, Jared, but I think what we said was clearing up Marquette. And so that's where they are, and maybe it wasn't specific, sir.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, it maybe wasn't specifically said that way, that we're going to move EOC, but I think the idea was we wanted to make Marquette something that would fit within the confines of what the city of Brandon is doing with the amphitheater and other things.
I understand, but I thought when we saw about clearing Marquette, maybe I'm thinking where our barn and all is.
Well, I think,
I
think those discussions were had, it wasn't in this boardroom, not during a board meeting. Because I went back and looked at tapes, and I didn't see it.
You went back and looked at tape?
I sure did this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought the clearing of Marquette was obviously clearing of the county facility farm.
We did have discussions
Everything we have out there.
within the context of executive session because it's acquisition of real
that's when we
property.
brought
So
the maps in, right?
and so
You hit on the
at
map?
that point in time, we discussed.
Well, the clearing of Marquette, I don't care about clearing of Marquette, you know. My concern is moving our road department, get them another structure because that's what our need is.
Me too.
And that's what we're doing.
I think this architect can answer some of our, we're jumping the gun here when we get the architect back, and if it's not very much money, we can make that decision. If it's a lot, and we've got the courthouse, we got the jail, we got projects that we wasn't expecting, and Miss Laura can tell us, you can pay for this or you can't pay for it.
And here's one of the other things I'd heard.
Because I think in 30 years, no, I don't think it's going to be that long. I think a lot of our county stuff will be down there with 90 acres, but it may not be that we can afford it this year.
And here's one thing I'd heard. I was of the understanding that the EOC people were budgeted. Ms. Laura, maybe you can help me on that as far as the numbers of spending $100,000 on an additional building for shed to store that stuff. Is that right? So they were fixing to spend that money regardless. Then I'd also even heard portions of, Sheriff, you make an address to this, as far as an additional shop for the shop area behind, I guess, where the maintenance shop is right now in the near future. So, I mean, I guess that was my thing. If you're going to spend another $100,000 at EOC to add shelter for vehicles for whatever it is, or stuff we got outside, fencing, fixing the leaks in the building, all that kind of stuff, like the cosmetic stuff that's going on, that if that price number was in the same range, why not just turnkey the whole deal, apply the sheriff's a new area to store his fleet maintenance?
Well, that's what we're looking at, but I'm just saying, I think the only thing was it wasn't really, I hadn't had any discussion on it. I'm like Jay, there's no discussion, we're discussing it now, but there's no real discussion other than getting our county barn moved to another location and for future, sure, the property will be there for some future things, which may be, DOC may be one of them, but as far as clearing Marquette, the main part of clearing Marquette is, to me, that's a priority, is our county facility.
I think the consensus is that we can tell the architect pull EOC out if it's too expensive or if we just decide we don't want to do that. But I think
Right.
it's worth the effort to hear what he
look at
has
it.
to say
Fine, look at it.
because it's the growth that we're going to have. Eventually, we're going to have to give Mike a new facility down there anyway at some point down the road, next 5-7 years probably, based on the continued enhancements that we do. So let's just go ahead and put the ball in play. Hopefully that Mr. Ware will have something back for us next Monday that we can start making some concrete decisions with and move on.
The only thing that concerns me is this, not that this 9,500 is just gonna get us to where we can do this. Then what's the cost gonna be?
I think we can sit down with him and decide which way, work out the deal there. Once we decide
Well, it's too
we don't
late.
really
You
know.
can't do that.
Yeah, you can.
You can't. Whatever, man. Okay.
I mean,
So you're going to say you're going to hire an engineer to do the draft, the drawings, and everything,
Okay.
but then possibly scrap him and go get somebody else.
But
You
no,
know,
I
I'm not
guess
saying
like-
I'm not saying I'm happy to go ahead and cut the contract with the whole thing, but
Yeah.
you're the ones who are doing the fish crawling, not me.
No,
you know.
fish crawl.
Thursday, our
Fish
discussion
crawl.
was you guys were going to go talk to him and find out what percentage he was going to charge us to do the building. And today, you come back and give us calls for doing preliminary work.
Right, and I guess my thing is, do you just go the process of bidding it out? What's
Look,
the other
I was
alternative?
fine
What's the
going,
other-
Jamie, because of the fact that we were going to end up dragging this thing out. You know, I felt like another architect that we already been doing business with give us a good price, but, if we were going to have to then start doing an RFQ and take a couple months to get it all done, I'm ready to move forward, but I would just like to know what it is we're going to pay.
Yeah,
I agree.
I would too. I think everybody would.
But is that the case?
What
regardless
is
of which architect you use?
JH&H
Well, I mean, if you
percentage?
start with an architect, you ain't going to
No, I guess my question is, what would be JH&H's issue?
Well, ask them.
We don't know.
Let them see what they're
It
doing.
wasn't something that anybody needed to do, I don't think. Wouldn't been my place to go ask them, because we
Well,
weren't.
what are we paying them
discussing.
on the courthouse building?
Right now, but that really doesn't matter. This is
I
another
imagine their
deal.
standard.
I know that, but what are we paying?
which is
I got a
what?
point of
Yeah.
reference. I got to have a point of reference.
I don't know, was it 12%? What did architects cost?
No, it's less than that.
Less than
I think it'd be
that?
that much.
7-ish.
Okay.
7.
I think I'm confused, because I thought we were going to the architect to see if and how much he would charge us
Yeah.
to give us some alternatives, and then to see if we were pretty close in line to what was already budgeted for Mike or not.
I got
I thought that's,
apologize.
is that,
No, sir. I think I understood it more like that, Steve, that we needed to figure out what the project was going to cost before we went any farther. And so the conversation with Jamie was, how much would it cost us? How would you have to charge us to get us to a point where we had a number, a cost estimate that we could work from, given certain inclusions, department inclusions in the plan? So I must have
And
totally misunderstood.
and I know these are not final drafts, but if we did this and he'd give us these drafts and with in and out, some of that, most of that wouldn't be able to be used if he had the contract to be the architect with continuing on.
Yeah, it would be
I would think
typical.
most all of it.
It would be
Most of it.
typical where you've got an architect that's been involved up to a process. It would not be unusual for a later hired architect to be able to use that data,
Especially
that
the same
information.
guy, if it was him. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah. In fact, that is
I'd
happening.
like to know how much we're gonna spend before we say, let's just do it.
That's what I'm getting at. You just open the door if you go do a say $9,500, and now you've got the foot in the door. I think we need to know where we're going
No, I'm
here.
talking about, I wanna know how much the buildings are gonna
yeah.
cost us.
I'm agreeing
That's
with
the-
Steve, and I
Yeah.
think we can take what data that Jamie does this week, if he's not ultimately going to end with the contract, and if it's JH&H or if it's a different firm altogether, can take that layout and still make it work forward, going with their work. So I say, we got him committed. He's willing to get something back to us, hopefully by next Monday or Tuesday, whenever the 15th is. I say let's move on it. I'll make the motion that we approve Mr. Ware's 70 hours not to exceed $9,500. Make that motion, put that on the agenda, Ms. Oster. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second, Mr. Cross. Any questions? Discussions? All in favor say aye.
Discussion, discussion is, well, I mean, I think we're doing this wrong all the way around. I think we need to open it up. We should have some other opportunities, options, see what someone else would charge. We're
We
kinda
had
like
that
sole
discussion
sourcing
on
it.
Thursday.
Well, I know.
Did you look at the video?
Hmm?
Did you
No,
look at the video?
I talked to some of the supervisors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I didn't
So-
speak to you. I'm just thinking it'd be better, but anyway, that's fine. You go ahead. I just made, you asked for discussion, I'm giving it, so don't.
Well,
go
I'm just
there.
saying, this is old news. I mean, if you want to do it, let's put it out for RFP and let's wait 60 days and move forward. I got no problem doing that, 'cause I have another architecture firm I'll throw in the mix too.
I'm just,
What do you think?
you just asked for discussion rather than pushing it through, so I stopped you to have a discussion of what I want to
RFP's
say.
gonna draw us
Nothing
down.
wrong with that, so move on.
It's not this discussion we already had.
Does anybody have a
Well,
definitive
discussion I
answer
want
how
to
much
have,
it'll
okay?
cost?
Just come to the
to
meeting
build
next
it
time.
With and without, or not at all?
No, sir.
So we
What's the
got,
line?
I mean, I don't wanna jump off up to here and then say we can't pay for any of it, or, I mean,
So it's a chicken or egg issue. You want to have a good number that you can work from, and you want to make sure that that number is something that you can trust, put some measure of trust in. And so it seems to me that the best approach is to make sure you got somebody that knows what they're doing. And to my way of thinking, that's an architect who can make sure that when he puts a plan in front of you with numbers attached to it, everything's been thought about. And our concern, obviously, is that if we just take, and hey, our road manager is unbelievable. He can take a napkin and draw stuff out, and it's amazing what all's in there. And in fact, Jamie's already said more than once, this is a heck of a start already from what Mike drew out and what Mike Word drew out on the page. But I can assure you that the way things are laid out there are efficiencies that you're missing.
weight-bearing walls,
You
stuff
got
like
it.
that.
And costs that are associated with those kinds of misses that will dramatically change the cost of the structure. And so my thought is, let's get the architect involved now and let's get
There's a
a
statute
number.
that says if it's more than 150,000, and we know it's gonna be more, that we have to have a professional.
A licensed
And Tim
professional.
and them say, we can hire an engineer, but an engineer's gonna hire an architect,
Yes.
and we're gonna pay twice. I mean, two different people there, really. We're gonna have, so the question is, do we want this guy, or do we want to RFP it for however many days?
Yes, this is a service.
Or either we're gonna
You're
say we're
you're
not
not
gonna do it.
required to bid this. It's a professional service. And so you have the option to go ahead and retain somebody that you guys feel that you can trust and is a professional, will do the job, and has given you a price that you can live with, 70 hours of time for $9,500, $150 an hour. So you got that in front of you. But if the board's decision is we need to hear from other architects before we move forward, then certainly you can make that decision as well.
I don't think the prep thing is the issue. I think it's what comes after.
I think Mr. Ware can provide us a percentage by next Monday. You know, I mean, we can stop, he'll provide us what we need to by next Monday. We stop his services at that point in time, assuming we have, you know, if we need to. And then he can present his proposal to us, and if the board is so desired, doesn't like the percentage, then we can go to RFP, and, you know, if the board likes it, then we can move on.
Yeah, and
I mean, assuming we, you know, come up with a plan to move on.
Well, one other thing I'm fine with just taking EOC out of the mix altogether and just doing the road, barn, shop, whatever it is. I mean, I'm totally good with him just bidding that out and start with that number and just see how astronomical that is. I mean, I'm fine with taking it all out, just straight road barn or road house, whatever you want to call it, and just getting the number from there.
Roadhouse on.
Hey, however they want to make it.
I think he can pull both numbers. I think you can do both
I think
scenarios.
you can do both of them too, but if it scares everybody to run both numbers now,
I think
then
it's
just
worth
run one.
finding out, because Mike's already mentioned what he's gonna have to spend down, Mike Ward has already said what he's gonna have to spend down there.
And see,
to
that was kind of the
accommodate.
issue of taking that $100,000 to $150,000 and applying that to this new shop area before he made the other addition. That was the point of that. But if we just assume launch him now and say, go do your work, spend $150,000 EOC, which he's budgeted for, that he's going to do. That was the point of just weighing it out, you know.
Right, rather not.
Because he was going to do it either way, I guess is my thing. He's going to spend the $150 on that, is what he was budgeted for. So I'm good with either option. I'm fine moving ahead with what we talked about, having him come back to us for under the $10,000 mark and say, here's your options on paper. Choose which one applies for you best. I'm good with that.
Well, then I think it'd be fair that he come back.
Because we're going to pay that regardless. We're going to pay that fee for him to design the road barn to start with.
Somebody's
That
gonna
money's
get
going to be
paid that
paid no matter how you slice it. So,
All right, there's a motion. Does anybody, I'm willing to continue to move forward with the motion I have on the
yeah,
table.
me too.
And you good with that, Mr. Cross, on the
Yes,
second?
yes.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. I see Miss Becky is back, so she's got perfect timing.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be glad to explain any of it. I also brought this, I didn't know if anybody wanted to see this. This is, everything that has to be done, what you did in place.
If y'all want to see what all IT does, we've got an outline of their work product. It amounts to somewhere around 196 hours estimated time for a 50 precinct election. But it's got it, I think Michelle put this together for us, but it's got an itemized work product that explains how
I didn't think on the smaller precincts we did two machines.
we have to have an 88 machine
Okay.
and a normal.
That's what the law says, you have to have an ADA.
No, I think it was just the opposite. I think one election commissioner specifically demanded more than two.
Yeah, okay, that's what Eric Baldwin
Oh, I
wants.
wasn't gonna say his name.
Well, I mean, I'm just real honest, and he wouldn't mind me using his name, you know, yeah.
Just to clarify, the minimum amount that we roll out for a 50 precinct election is 100 machines.
Which
That's
we've
the
yet to
minimum.
have one, so.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right, with the new
That's the
machines.
minimum.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
regular device and one ADA device for every single precinct. And then we have precincts where an election commissioner has said, I want 2 machines and an ADA, or I want 3 machines and an ADA. So we have more than 100 total machines at our disposal.
So,
We had to
Becky,
order more than that.
what about, at one time, I don't know if you did or prior, I think you did a little bit, you used to have an employee that was supposed to go in and like keep the batteries charged up and all that on the old machines, but then he went away.
Yeah, the board did that, I didn't. Was it
He
Mr.
was on the board,
Delabelle
Mr.
or
Delabelle,
something?
and
Yeah.
Then he went under you for a
Was
while
that-
or something, the board put the money in there, it didn't matter
Right,
whether
but
it was out of elections
I
or
guess-
whatever.
It was out of elections, it wasn't out of my fee, yeah, it wasn't out of my fee.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Right, I knew
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I mean,
I
but
thought that's
we
what you were
paid the money.
asking.
No, we,
Okay, yeah.
we supplemented your fee or cost, whatever. So,
Oh.
what about going forward? Are you saying that you're gonna take responsibility of make sure those machines are stored properly and whatever maintenance needs to be done, that
Yes.
you're gonna do it?
As far as what Greg, as far as I know, this is new to me too, so I'm,
Yeah,
but
well,
as far as I
I don't
know.
want to pile
Yeah.
all this on you and you
Uh-huh.
not,
Yeah.
really be wanting to do it.
Mhm, yeah.
So,
I think this is almost an experiment for all. No, I mean, I'm confident in doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
As long as I've got some backup help.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't mind doing this for June and July, and then we can revisit it and
See how it works
see
out.
what y'all think and see what I think, and then we can go forward from there.
Yeah, I'm for it.
I'm just saying, we need to do something for the June 5th election.
yeah.
Mr. President, I'll make that motion to approve through June, July.
We gotta.
Make a motion to add then.
There's a motion on the floor to
Second.
add this item to the agenda by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Same motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion or comments? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Becky.
I'll be
Yeah.
working.
Maybe.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Maybe it's a congratulations. Thank you very much.
I'll be working Ms. Flood to make sure we get the minute entry on that item correct. Also, I'll need to work with Ms. Becky to get a contract in place, and we will More than likely, we'll have that back in front of you on the 15th for approval. But what you're doing today is you're authorizing the moving forward of the preparation of the contract with Ms. Becky, and we'll go ahead and make it effective as of today's date.
Right, so that'll allow Michelle to start working
Yes,
in that process.
that's
You know where we're
correct.
headed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional business, Ms. Oster, Mr. Slade?
Executive session, personnel and acquisition.
I'll entertain a motion to have the need for discussion of
I'll make
executive
the motion,
session.
that's need to go into executive session.
Moved by Mr. Bishop, so a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Cross. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the reasons of personnel and right-of-way acquisition?
So moved.
So, Mr. Morrison, is there a second?
Second.
Second by you, Daniel?
Bishop.
Oh, Mr. Bishop, sorry. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Sorry, you can call me Steve or Daniel. I don't
You called-
Harrison,
It's an upgrade either
You
way.
called,
It's an upgrade
you
either
called
way for
Bishop Daniel several
I
times.
really called him when I